Chief Hurd, I just want to be able to give context to everybody. We're talking about different towns and such here. McAllister is a community less than 20,000 people in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
And so we talk about the effects of what's happening on the border and the effects of illegal drugs that are moving in. This is not New York City.
Correct.
This is a community of less than 20,000 people. That's just a really remarkable community, and a lot of great families and people that are there that are being directly affected based on the lack of enforcement on our southern border.
Thank you, sir. Exactly. Our community is, like I say, less than 20,000. Most people know everybody else. You either know them or you're related to, you know them through somebody else, 1 or 2 degrees. Everybody's affected. If it's somebody's son accidentally overdoses, everybody in the community is just devastated by that. Like I say, if it doesn't take a great deal of narcotics to come in and really change the dynamics of our community, drop the prices, the overdoses, all the illegal activity just booms. People breaking into your cars, breaking into your house, stealing your stuff to sell it for drugs or trade it for drugs.
Yeah, and I think what most people don't realize is a lot of the theft, a lot of the burglaries that happen are individuals that are actually drug addicted as well, and they're trying to be able to feed a habit. And so it's not just what's happening in the drugs in the street, it's affecting lots of other folks as well.
The majority of the property crimes you can relate back to drugs, 100%.
Mayor McCall, thank you for your testimony on this as well today. I want to ask a more specific question. Did you talk already about social media and some of the effects of that? Sorry, I was in and out during the vote series as we're both trying to be able to come back and forth. You were talking specifically about social media being used to be able to recruit individuals in different communities, including yours, to be able to then drive loads of people, as they were referred to, that are coming into the country illegally.
Yes, sir.
And the dangers of that. What do you need the social media companies to do to be able to take responsibility for how their platform is being used? They seem to have filters and algorithms for everything, but they're not filtering out this algorithm.
Perfect, sir. We need this filter. I just got a text from Sheriff Daniels. We had 2 low cars pursuits on yesterday, 5 per car. Each one is going for $3,000 a head. So attracting these young people on this social media platform is how they're doing it. We need to shut it down, basically. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what it entails, but it was just 2 yesterday. I haven't got the numbers for today, but it's every day this is happening, and it's done by social media. They pinpoint a car to steal or to a rental, and then pinpoint the load. The load shows up. They pick them up, speed north.
We were talking before about push factors and the federal responsibility. Dr. Garcia, you brought this up as well. I would only say there's a significant push factor, but the challenge is, when we talk about the federal responsibility and push factors, is, as we've seen in the border of late, more than 150 countries that are coming. Now, they're dominantly coming from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Venezuela. We've got a certain group of countries that we've had a higher number from of late. Haiti. We understand some of those factors, but we literally have individuals from all over the world that are coming now in incredibly high numbers. The folks that are coming in from many areas of the world are not coming in based on poverty in that area. It's economic opportunity here in the United States. Part of the pull factor, I would say, from this is the ability to be able to cross the border and then to be able to stay. And at this point, as I had mentioned before to Mayor Nichols, we've got individuals that have crossed the border, request to go to New York City for their asylum hearings. They're here for 2 decades before that process is complete. So whether they qualify or not, they still got to be in America for 2 decades in the process. That's a pretty significant pull factor. When you have the opportunity to be able to come in the United States of America, make just a declaration of the border, and then be able to travel anywhere in the country you want to be able to travel for the next 2 decades, and to be able to have a work permit in the process, that's a pretty big pull factor that's got to be resolved. Most of the individuals that are crossing the border also already have a family member here or a contact here somewhere, And I'm sure that y'all have experienced that as well, and the individuals that you've interacted with, that most already have a relationship here. And so it's not just I crossed the border, I'm fleeing from injustice somewhere else, I'm reconnecting with family that's already here. That's not the definition of asylum. That's economic opportunity, it's family reunification, but it's not the definition of asylum. So one of the things that we're trying to be able to go through, and what the administration thankfully has started to be able to take on of late, is to be able to look at this issue of asylum. And I know Senator Padilla brought this up a while ago on the asylum issues. I just want to be able to clarify a couple of things in this while we're talking about asylum, and to get some things on the record. One of them is asylum, the definition is I can't find a safe place in my home country. Then if you can't find a safe place in your home country, in most of the world, you cross into the next safe country. That's the way it works. For instance, in Canada, if you cross the Canadian border and say, I'd like to request asylum, the first question they're going to ask you is, did you cross from the American side? If so, did you request asylum in the United States before you came to Canada? If you say, no, I didn't request asylum in the United States before I came to Canada, they say, thank you very much, and they push them right back here, or they push them back to the country of their original origin. That's Canadian law. That's true in most areas of Europe as well. If you actually cross into that country, they're going to say, did you request asylum in the country before you came into this country? If you're coming into Yuma from Uzbekistan, you've crossed into quite a few countries before you got our border to be able to cross into. But that's not being applied right now in the United States. They're not applying that. We're also not applying whoever's last in is first up in the hearing. If you just cross the border, we could have the next hearing is you. But right now, instead, we're saying, well, we'll put you in the queue, and 18 years from now is when you're actually going to get your hearing. That's a problem, obviously, because that encourages people to be able to come. If they knew they were next in the queue and that the asylum definition actually was consistent with what most of the world is for how they're handling asylum, that would be very, very different for most individuals, I believe, that we would be able to handle that differently. We also have a very low screening threshold. The first set of questions that we ask at the border is just, are you afraid in your country? And if they say yes, they're in the process. So we literally call it the magic words they just have to be able to say to cross the border, and then they're into this 2-decade-long process to be able to come in. Now, most of those individuals, when they get to the end, actually don't qualify for asylum if they actually stayed in the process, but they don't find out for a decade or more that they actually don't qualify because the screening threshold is so low. And then the last piece of this is if they don't qualify for asylum and a court does what's called a final order removal, saying you crossed the border, you requested asylum, but you actually don't qualify, we're actually not deporting those individuals. We say to them, you need to leave on your own, and they don't. So all of those factors together are a much larger issue of a pull factor to be able to pull people to the United States. When you have one of the greatest economies and quite frankly the greatest nation on God's earth, you have a lot of people around the world that are interested to be able to come. And when they've got family connections, that's one more piece to be able to say, gosh, you should come, to be able to come through the process. So I want to just be able to put that on the record, that I think this is one of the most significant issues we've got to be able to deal with, is how we handle asylum, how we handle E-Verify, and quite frankly, what this administration's going to do at the end of Title 42, which they have known about the end of Title 42 now for 2.5 years that it was coming. 2.5 years, everyone knew this was coming. Now it is in 2.5 weeks. So the question is, what is this administration going to do to be able to handle the hundreds of thousands of people that may flood across the border at that point? What policies are they going to put in place? Or after 2.5 years, are they just going to ignore it? Now, I'm not going to ask any of you to address that. That's not your area. That's up here in D.C., but you're just suffering the consequences where you are. So I just want to be able to say thank you very much for being here, making the long trip, and putting so much on the record today. It's very helpful to be able to have that dialogue. I yield back.